The Justin Eichorn story has just gotten a little bit more interesting. This is I.C.A.C. Unpacked. I'm Norman Michaelation for the 30th of March, 2025. So Justin Eichorn, you'll recall, is a Minnesota state senator who, uh, after producing a bill 2 Fridays ago, or last Friday, I guess, trying to codify Trump derangement syndrome as if it's some kind of mental illness. The following Monday, he got caught in a sex sting in Minneapolis, St. Paul area, the community of Bloomington. And in this community, um, Mr. Eichorn had sought to meet a 17-year-old, according to press and court documents, for the purpose of an assignation, a hookup. And that's at least the press story. But the press release or the statement that the attorney for Eichorn released is more interesting than anything else that has come out of this. So Eichorn was released today, and he will go to a halfway house in Duluth. Let's look at that clip here. All right, let's look at this particular quote from his attorney because this is the most interesting thing about this case. Okay, I'm not sure exactly what he means by that last part, but it's interesting. What is listed here among all of those different elements here, you'll notice it says in the previous one to coerce, entice, persuade, and induce. And what's interesting about that is that is the language of, excuse me, the federal statute. Let's see if I can get that federal statute up here at all and see if that shows up. The federal statute talks about how he can actually go through and fight it potentially on that basis. And I'm not quite sure where that is exactly, but the statute that I had up here, oh, here it is right here. Statute is right here, 18 U.S. Code 2422, enticement and coercion. Sorry, folks, still getting used to this on my little screen here. You'll see this. This comes out of the Cornell Law School, but it's still 18 U.S. Code 2422. Look at this. Whoever knowingly, and that's kind of a big deal here, persuades, entices, induces, entices, or coerces. You'll notice that that's exactly the language that the attorney used. Exactly the language. If we back it up here, let's look at that. Backed up a little bit here. If the court looks at the text messages with a discerning eye, he's engaged in preliminary conversation. He never seduces, never entices, never persuades. So two of those four elements, entices, persuades, the other two are induces and coerces, he never does. Now, I suspect that since this is a federal case now, what will happen is that they will attempt to go for an entrapment defense. And that is kind of an interesting item right there, because in an entrapment defense, what you have there is, according to the U.S. Department of Justice here, okay, CRM 500 through 999, 645, the elements of entrapment, which I've talked about in previous episodes here. Entrapment is a complete defense. That means if you can make it stick, it will get you off to a criminal charge on the theory that government agents may not originate a criminal design. They may not have what's called the mens rea. Government agents, cops, they may not implant in an innocent person. Now, people say, well, he was there to have sex. Yes, but it's not necessarily true yet that he was there for underage sex. I know what the police said. I know what the report from the press came out saying, which was parroting what the police say because that's what they do. I know I used to be an investigative reporter. That's the type of thing I would do. Okay. But that's hearsay. That's hearsay in court. It says implant in an innocent person, he's still innocent until proven guilty, the disposition to commit a criminal act and then to induce another one of those four words, commission of the crime, so that the government may prosecute. And that cites two cases I've cited before. Jacobson, 1992, this is U.S. Supreme Court. A valid entrapment defense has two related elements. One, government inducement of the crime. Two, the defendant's lack of predisposition to engage in criminal conduct, aka Matthews v. United States. That's back in 1988. Of the two elements, predisposition is by far the most important. What's curious about that is that courts seem to be pissing all over this. They took that and threw that out entirely, regardless, in many of these cases, regardless of what you think about me, you trolls out there, there's no predisposition. Predisposition means you demonstrated that you had some kind of activity prior to this that you were interested in. Okay? Predisposition. You made some sort of affirmative stance on it. And so they play games with this predisposition as well, because I've just given you two potential definitions. Okay. Some courts will describe this as, well, you made some affirmative steps toward it. Well, that's very subjective as to what those affirmative steps were. Okay. Others have said there's nothing in this man's history, and it's usually a man, that would indicate he would ever have done that he had a predisposition for doing it. Okay, you go down here and look at inducement as a threshold, a 1932 decision from Sorrells, etc. And I'll post these here. They have some more in here as well, and they go on and explain what that is. Okay, so my suggestion is that this is exactly what they're going to do. They're going to go for an entrapment defense. They're going to say he relied on what she had said originally, that there was potential role play involved. I don't know if they're going to go that far. But that the police had an ad, it said one thing, and then they switched it up, had 14. And he believed that she was 17 or 18, whatever you want to believe on that. Okay. I don't know either, and you don't know especially, because if you haven't looked at all the cases that many of us have looked at, we really don't know. And he may well be guilty. I don't know. But this appears to be the defense that they're going for. Now, tonight, from what the report said, Eichorn is headed to Duluth, Minnesota, where he will go to a halfway house where they'll basically monitor his every move until such time that he has a trial. Some of you may be all up in arms that he got off and got out. And unfortunately, I've looked at 3 reports and I haven't seen anything that talks about what happened in the courtroom that got him off. A lot of cases, if it's a sex case, is predisposition not to give bail, but this is not a small child. This is not a young or little child, whatever that Bloomington police chief said. Not that. This is a 17-year-old, nearly a woman, okay, and was potentially putting herself out as older, and that this was potentially an issue that he could have relied on or not relied on. I don't know how it will necessarily come down. But it is clear from the statement of the lawyer that he will be going for some kind of entrapment defense. Certainly, they're laying the groundwork for it. Something curious also happened. Eichorn's wife was a mysterious woman that went to his apartment the next day and retrieved his laptop, or attempted to, and the police were there and they prevented her from doing so. On the laptop, they're still examining it or scanning it. So, but they can do this pretty quickly. What he needs to look out for is whether they might plant something. So he certainly needs to have a forensic analyst there. And, you know, we're all interested in protecting kids, but we also have to be interested in fairness and justice. We want to make sure that what police do with the evidence will secure the evidence. They did not do that in my case. They did not do that in many other cases. And that's an important part of it, despite what you trolls out there seem to think. I've been bombarded the last 4 days with about 100 troll attacks every day. And it's gotten a little old, folks. We keep repeating the same things. There's some elements that they think they know and that they want to go after. And this is what Mr. Eichorn's going to have to deal with too. He's already been threatened because of the Trump derangement syndrome business. And in a way, I'm kind of on the side of those who would not like to be have their view of Mr. Trump viewed as a mental illness, but at the same time, I don't get behind threatening people either in any way, shape, or form. So we'll be following the Eichorn case to see what absolutely happens in it, and I will post those um, links that I had here in the course in the description down below. And you have a wonderful day.